What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sit Down with Sid podcast. This is episode number 31. Our guest today is a dad and host of the CancerDad podcast. In 2013, his family had a moment that turned their world upside down. One of their sons, Neyland, was diagnosed with cancer. They have watched him beat one cancer only to be diagnosed with another. Their family has been in the trenches of this battle for several years now, still standing and still fighting. This world is one that many don't understand what really goes on, the effects it has on everyone involved, and just the reality of nightmare that families live in the whole time. That being said, it is an honor for me to have Jason Pickel today on this podcast. Hi, Jason. How's it going?
Hey, Sid. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. So, Jason, before we kind of dive into the podcast, would you mind unpacking to our audience a little bit about yourself, your background?
Sure. I was born in Middle Tennessee. Spent most of my childhood there, and then we eventually moved to East Tennessee, where I've been for the last approximately about 25 years. I am married, have 4 kids, and basically I just graduated high school, and right out of high school I went into law enforcement, where I had approximately a 19-year career. Just recently got out of it. I recently just got out of it about a year and a half ago. But other than that, just a basic normal guy that does normal things, like sports, and just gets by the best he can.
That's perfect. So I want to talk about, before we kind of, talk about what happened with your family. I'm going to talk about your podcast, which is named CancerDad podcast. So what inspired you to come up with those podcasts, and why did you choose this name specifically?
Well, I've done podcasts in the past. They were short-lived each time, and it was just something that I enjoyed. I've always enjoyed listening to podcasts, and I just like learning and being able to hear people's stories. And the more that we went through with what we've been going through with our child, it just seemed like I wanted to do something, and I wanted to share his story somehow. And I just came to the conclusion that podcasting was the way to go, and a way to share his story, plus include my thoughts and our family's thoughts and our other families.
Great. So Jason, take us back to 2013 when you guys found out that one of your son was diagnosed with cancer. What was happening to Neyland that you guys realized that he needed to see a doctor to begin with?
Well, actually, the way it went, it was actually, I guess you could say, by luck or by the grace of God that we come across it, in a sense, because originally, before we found out he had cancer, Neyland had a seizure one night and was rushed to the ER. And on follow-up with his regular doctor, she recommended him have some scans just to be better safe than sorry. Nobody expected to find anything. This was one of those deals just to cover the bases. And those scans is what ended up leading to find out that he had brain cancer, medulloblastoma.
Well, so what stage was that on? Like when the scan was done?
It really wasn't broken into a stage at that time. It was just they knew that they saw the tumor, the mass, and they knew they went in to get it, try to remove as much as they can, and then of course he would be followed up with several cycles of chemo treatment.
So Jason, it's a very tough question, but I have to ask you this: what was your world like? I mean, you and your wife are sitting there in the hospital, and the doctor comes and gives you this news,
Right. It happened very fast, and it seems to be the common theme when it comes to everything that has gone on with this journey is you really didn't have time to process much. We went from the seizure, the ER, doctor visit, scan, and then we're having a meeting with, the doctor let us know that your son has a tumor on his brain, and diagnosed medulloblastoma. And shortly after that, we're jumping into him having surgery and them going in trying to remove it. So it all happened pretty fast. It was, I think you basically at that time, you're just kind of numb to it. Didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have time to react because everything was coming at you so quick.
Wow. So I mean, what these treatments were prescribed by the doctors in the initial stages, and was your son able to cope up with like at ease?
The treatments were, I mean, it was basically after the surgery, it was a several variety of chemo treatments, and for the most part, I mean, he had the basic side effects that eventually happened, the sickness and the hair loss and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
he was only 3 years old at the time, so he, I guess you could say, he understood it as well as a 3-year-old could understand it.
But like till date, have you ever told him like this is what you had, what you went through, or?
Oh yeah, we've definitely had discussions now because he's still going through treatments and such, and he's 11 years old now, so he has a very good grasp on it now of what he's been going through and what he's currently going through.
So let me ask you. I know. I mean, even in the intro, I said that you watched him beat this cancer, to be diagnosed with another one. So give us a time span of like how long did it take for him to get treated for the brain cancer? When was he clear, and so forth?
From the time of diagnosis, he dealt with that one for about 2.5 years, roughly.
Wow.
From 2013 to, I think it was the early stages of 2015 is when they put him in remission. And then approximately about a year later is when he was diagnosed with leukemia. That was basically caused because of the treatments that were given to him before the previous cancer is what caused it.
Okay. And then how has this so is he cancer free now? That's my question.
No, he's not. He's been, since that point, he's went through a couple of relapses, 3 or 4 relapses, and continues taking it on the day as we go through treatments and just trying to find something.
So I mean, let me ask you now, how how optimistic are the doctors in terms of him being cancer free down the line?
Uh, well, I guess to give you kind of a preview of future episodes for my podcast, we're basically in a stage now where there's nothing out there. It's
Really?
just a matter of keeping a lid on it, so to say, for as long as we can.
Wow. So I mean, tell our audience a little bit about like how did this whole experience uh, impact living with yourself, your habits, relationship with family and friends?
I mean, it definitely changed everything. Our family's been impacted, and it, as many families can relate, it impacts you in many different areas, many different levels of your life. There's no longer what you consider normal is no longer the normal, and you go through a lot of different changes, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
yourself or with friends and other family members, and just life in general, because there's so much you have to adapt to. You have to make the changes, and some people that were friends and family at the beginning, they didn't really understand that. So it's been, I mean, there's been a few that's not been able to adjust and not understand
Mm-hmm.
why we do what we do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's no longer the typical life of we can't just run out and do whatever we want or go places where we want to go or go to gatherings and things like that. You just have to, it's a little bit different. There's a lot more to consider now when you're going through something like this.
That is absolutely true. So I mean, going through all of this, yourself and your wife, were there times like you felt like giving up and like, it was really hard for you guys to kind of battle this whole thing?
I don't think we've ever reached a point where we felt like giving up, but it's definitely been several times where you just, you don't know. I mean, you kind of feel like there's nothing out there. It's never going to turn around. And I like to say that I think our faith has got weak in it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably gotten weak and probably lost our faith at times, but we've never gave up the hope.
That's amazing. So Jason, talk us a little bit about your podcast. I'm curious to know what year did you start it? Um, what is the message you're trying to send to the people with your podcast, and tell us more about like the kind of guests you have, and like take us into your podcast from here on. You
Okay.
know.
Yeah, started the podcast. It's probably just over a year ago now, actually. And what people will find is when they look at my episodes on my website and things like that, it don't look like a year's work. And the reason because is when I first started this podcast, I got into about 5 or 6 episodes in, and I was finding it hard for myself to tell a story that was still writing itself
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with all the emotions and thoughts of the past and stuff. So I eventually just quit doing it for a while, and I just picked it back up just a couple months ago. And it's something that my hope is, no matter if I'm doing it 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, my only hope is that through our stories and other family stories, it provides help to those families that are going through it and through the battle of the world of childhood cancer, and bring awareness to those that maybe not know, because it's something that needs to be more aware of. If you see on social media, I mean, there's people all the time talking about it when it comes to what our country and the research is actually doing for our children, and
Mm-hmm.
there's not much there. So I'm just hoping through our stories that it brings more awareness that there needs to be more done for them, because they're our future. I mean, there should be more priority with our kids when it comes to this, because if we don't have them, what do we got in the future? And that's the main purpose of my podcast, just to bring that hope and help. And right now it's a solo podcast. I'm telling our
Mm-hmm.
story, our son's story. I'm actually in the next month or so going to be switching over to where I bring in other families to tell their story
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I think it's going to be really good to see different perspectives. For the most part, I focus on the dad side, hence the name
Mm-hmm.
CancerDad podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
but there will be times where it won't just be dads. I plan on, having nurses and maybe even doctors that our child has had and things like that, just to bring all the perspective of what it's like to really live in this world of childhood cancer.
So does the community out there know that you're involved in this venture, and like looking forward to like having people on board share their
Yeah,
stories?
there's been a lot of support for it, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and especially
Really?
locally. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's been several that have sent me messages and talking about how they enjoy it, and even people that have been following along our whole journey have reached out, and they've heard episodes and they knew of what happened during that time, but they really didn't know, the details. So it was good for them to hear that. And as far as I know, I've had several tell me, that it's helped them, which is the purpose of it in the first place.
So let me ask you, Jason, as a father, do you think the U.S. Medical field is not up to par when it comes to cancer treatments?
I don't I don't know necessarily if it's I guess the medical field as far as the people within it that's doing the work. I just think, I mean, right now it's a
I want to
well-known
know about the
fact that,
resources, like
yeah,
as a
resource,
father, yes.
yeah. Uh, I think it could be better.
Okay.
Uh, I think a lot of it could be better. But for the most part, as far as our personal experiences with the medical field and with the hospitals here, we couldn't ask for better, but resources and everything they've done to help our family. And we know they're doing everything they can for
Mm-hmm.
our child. But I think they only can do so much because their hands are tied on the higher levels of where it comes from.
Got it. Jason, would you mind telling us like a day in your life recently, like with Neyland? Like, how does your day look like? How many times a week does he go for treatment and so forth?
Right now, currently, he goes at least twice a week
Mm-hmm.
for treatment. Like presently, the days there's pretty much just we're at the house. There's not much going on. He's just not able to watching TV. A good day is all our family sitting on the couch watching a movie and having dinner. And just hanging out. That's
Okay.
pretty much where we're at right now.
Okay. So I mean, tell me, how do you keep yourself so strong? I mean, this is yours, and I'm also talking on behalf of your wife, because
Right.
it's a team effort from you and your wife to keep this thing going. What keeps you going?
I would say our child, and what I mean by that is he probably don't realize how many times that he has gave us more strength and gave us a better attitude because how he handles everything. And my wife, she, as you said, it's a team effort, but I'll be the first to admit when it comes to everything we deal with him, I mean, she's the rock star on that one. She does. I would be lost on numerous things when it comes to the medical side and keeping everything together. If it wasn't for her. People say, we're strong, and they tell other families they're strong, and we know it's somebody trying to pay us a compliment, so to say, but it's something that I don't feel is any different than any parent would do in this situation. It's not that we're strong necessarily or wanting to be strong, is we have no choice. Just like any other parent that goes through this, you have no choice but to keep going. I mean, that's your child that's fighting, and you have to fight with them. So there's no option of giving up until there's nothing left.
Well, that's an impeccable answer, and that is absolutely true. As you said, fighting for your child, you have to fight as parents. So Jason, I wanna ask you, like, if there was a message you wanted to, before that, I want to ask, where is your podcast available, so we can put that description in the video description below. Put the link. So
my podcast, you can check out my website, which is cancerdadpodcast.com. There you'll find everything you need to know about the podcast, all the previous episodes, and information on myself and nonprofit organizations. It has just about anything you can think of when it comes to childhood cancer. But I'm also found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Google Podcasts, just about any platform you can think of where podcasts are hosted, you can find CancerDad Podcast.
Perfect. So Jason, I want to ask one last question, is about the nonprofit organizations. I did check on your website, you have a few of them. Now, how do you collaborate with them? Or, I'm sure you must need their permission to have them listed on the site, correct?
Right. Yes, I've talked to most of those that are on my website. Are local. There's a few that's not, and I've actually had to reach out. And I've had one or two actually reach out to me and send me an email, just want to know if I'd be interested. And I don't get anything from it, and I tell them all this. It's nothing for me. It's just another outlet for me to try to help people that are trying to help these children and families within this world. And so they've reached out, and I've talked to all of them. And the way I go about it is I have a audio ad schedule once a week, because my episodes are once a week, and I just rotate them in and out.
That's amazing. Jason, as a closing statement from your end, what message would you like to give to the audience watching this podcast, to the parents out there, to the kids as well? Take it away from here.
I would just like to say that for those that are going through the battles and that live within this world of childhood cancer, just always know you're not alone, and that all you can do is the best you can. That's one thing that we have learned over the years. If you do the best you can, that's all you can ask for. And that's all you can ask out of your child. But just learn to breathe, take a moment every so often. And when the time comes, if you need to cry, cry. If you need to yell, yell. If you need to throw things. Whatever you need to do, it's okay. don't make you a bad parent. It don't make you a bad person, because that's what happens within this world. And it's okay to be like that. And for those that maybe don't know what it's like to live within the world of childhood cancer, that's okay too, because there's a lot of people that struggle with our support group, our friends and our family members that don't know what to do. They don't know how to help. And it's understandable, because you're not the one going through it. And this is definitely something to really get a good grasp on what we deal with. You really have to be the person that's going through it. But just knowing that you are there for your friend and family that might be going through it is invaluable. They may never ask you for anything. They may never want you to do anything, but just knowing that they can means more than you'll ever know. So don't ever think you're never doing anything or that you're not doing enough. And other than that, just my message that I give on my podcast episodes every time, and I would like to give it here: no matter what you're going through, I challenge my listeners to be a difference in someone else's life. Because we don't know what each of us deal with on a daily basis. And it's something that we also don't know how far a small gesture could go. That small gesture could come at the right time for that person when they needed it the most. And I've also seen firsthand, no matter what I'm going through, helping others gives you a sense of peace, no matter what you're dealing with. So I challenge each and every one listening now to do that. Be a difference in someone else's life.
Very inspiring, Jason. I mean, very humbling experience to have you on the podcast. Jason, listen, I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to thank you very much once again for giving us this opportunity to have you here and share about your world, which is very important, as you say. It's all about awareness, getting the word out, right? If there is something we can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us anytime. And, from us, we want to wish your son good health, fast recovery, and we pray that he will be cancer-free and you will come out of this on top,
I greatly appreciate it. And I thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk about it and spread some awareness.
Thank you so much, Jason. We are here for you if you ever need us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.